Well, after a two-game road trip, the Kansas City Chiefs are back where the season began, at home to take on the New Orleans Saints. We'll see if the Chiefs can continue this really unusual winning streak that they've got going, despite the fact that they're turning it over and they're not scoring any points. It might be the right time of the year for the Saints to do this, but the problem is their quarterback isn't really good in this situation. We'll explain it all in the pregame power-up. Chiefs are back at Arrowhead after a two-game road trip to take on the Saints tonight. They haven't lost there since last Christmas. Now, overall, they've won 10 consecutive games, including the playoffs, and they're one of two undefeated remaining teams in the NFL, along with those pesky 5-0 Minnesota Vikings who took care of the Jets in London on Sunday. Welcome into Pregame Power, presented by Campbell's Chunky Soup that eats like a meal. We've got a buffet for you tonight on this Monday night game. Trey Wingo here with Claudia Bellafato. Mike Pritchard will join us. Marshall Newhouse will join us. Emerson Lotzi will add his flavor to the recipe. And what are the numbers telling you as we get closer and closer to kickoff at Arrowhead?
Everybody likes the Saints, and I will say that this original line opened, this was before week 4, opened 6.5. Money came in, brought this down to 5.5, as low as 4.5, but settled around where we're seeing it now, 5.5. And that is what everybody's jumping on. By everybody, I mean the public, but also the sharps are liking the points with the Saints. Money line, different situation. We'll talk about that later. As far as the total goes, open 45 before week 4, got as low, Trey, as 42, back up to 43, but no surprise under money because of all of these injuries that the Chiefs are dealing with.
And one of them that there's a big concern, which is what happened in their last game, the win over the Chargers. What about wide receiver Rashee Rice, who was injured, of course, when we had that situation where he was trying to get back after a Patrick Mahomes interception and Mahomes clipped him in the knee. Rice actually had a procedure on his knee today to figure out what exactly is going on. It's still unclear to the extent of the injury because of the swelling in the knee. You're hearing reports from both Ian Rappaport of NFL Network and Adam Schefter saying the timeline could be anywhere to 4 weeks to 9 months, depending on what they find with that procedure that was undertaken today to figure out what exactly is going on in that knee of Rashee Rice. And he's going to be missed because this offense is not what it used to be. Since Mahomes took over as a starter in 2018, the Chiefs are on pace for their worst per-game averages in total yards, passing yards, third down percentage, and red zone percentage. Second worst points per game in that span as well. Losing Rice will certainly hurt, but they know no one is going to feel sorry for an undefeated team who has won back-to-back Super Bowls.
Unfortunately, in this league, injuries happen and life goes on. So we have always expected the next guys to step up and roll, and it's no different now. Is Rashee? There's not another Rashee. There's other guys though that are very, very good. So we'll be fine.
We have a lot of intelligent receivers in this receiving room right now, and so I feel like we're all seeing the field the same way. But now it's about me just having that trust and giving them those shots to make plays in traffic and stuff like that. And so, like I did with Xavier on that deep one, I think there was more opportunities to throw even to him later on in that game. And so just continue for myself to give him those chances to go out there and make plays and be the receiver that he is. And that goes throughout the entire receiving room, the tight end room, and the running back room.
Well, tonight's power-up play will focus on Mahomes and his passing yards proper tonight. It's 235.5. That's where it's set. In case you're wondering, yeah, that's the lowest it's ever been for Mahomes as a starter of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, overall, he's on pace for career lows in passing yards per game. His touchdown to interception ratio is the worst it's been in overall rating. But weirdly, he's on pace for the highest completion percentage of his career. And Claudia, it doesn't get easier tonight when you take a look at that defense that he's facing, despite the fact that they have some injuries.
Yeah, Saints, one of the top defenses, as are the Chiefs, though. And if we take a look at these trends, for first and trend, it's lockdown for both squads. Chiefs specifically, though, unders have been the name of the game on Monday night. 7 of their 8 Monday night games have gone under the point total. Monday night, Unders overall have been 16 and 11. The Saints, the Chiefs, all the numbers point to the under. The defense being a huge part of that. You look at what the Chiefs did last year. That was the talk of the town. We know what their offense can do, but their defense is what stepped up. Top 5 in points, total yards allowed, sacks. The Saints, the best red zone defense this season. And taking a look specifically at that defense, when it comes to getting to the quarterback, Chase Young and Carl Granderson have accounted for over 60% of the Saints' pressures this season. That's the highest percentage for a team's top 2 players. And they know, regardless of the state of this Chiefs offense, pressuring number 15 is the best path to success.
Very important. I mean, maybe fortunately, unfortunately, I was in that division for 4 years. So I actually coached the first game he started. But he's a guy that he understands what he's looking at, but he has the ability to extend plays. And then we've all seen it. And I think part of it is our ability to cover him twice. You know, the initial route, and then when he moves in the pocket, we're going to have to be able to stay tight in coverage. But he's extraordinary what he does.
Yeah, I love how he plays. That just gives us the extra chance, the second that I talked about, he might give you 3. You know what I'm saying? So as long as we keep rushing, you know, I think we'll. You know, obviously Mahomes, he's Hall of Famer. You know what I'm saying? So he gonna do his thing, but we just got to make sure we do our thing also.
And the Saints have been particularly good against the pass this season. They've allowed only 1 touchdown tray to opponents through the air while forcing 6 interceptions. They're ranked top 10 in completion percentage against and second in opponent passer rating. Now, of course, they haven't faced Patrick Mahomes yet, so this will surely be the real test, and Mahomes hasn't seen a ton of pressure, but of course you pluck away his weapons one by one, that makes it a little bit tougher for him.
It does, and you know, hearing Chase Young say that, I love playing against him. Did he not remember the Super Bowl last year where they tried to run him down in overtime, and that was the only touchdown drive of the entire game for the Kansas City Chiefs when he engineered that touchdown drive to get it. And you know, there are going to be some missing pieces to that New Orleans defense. Willie Gay, the linebacker who won a couple of Super Bowls with the Kansas City Chiefs, he's out with that hand injury. Peyton Turner, the knee is also out. So the Willie Gay revenge game, we're not happening, but we'll have to see how they can come up with something. And you just get the sense maybe with those linebackers out that maybe Travis Kelce, who showed glimmers of hope, and we'll get to that a little bit later, will be more featured in the offense tonight.
You would hope, or he's just going to be doubled and tripled like crazy, which opens up other talented weapons. We just talked about Worthy and his threat downfield. So all of this is possibilities. I will say, and I'll talk about a prop I like for Mahomes later on, it is going to be tough for him. And when it comes to taking away his weapons, any pressure he might face, right now he has the 4th most turnover-worthy throws. We haven't seen a ton of them, only 5, but I think maybe 1 or 2 could show up tonight.
Well, the other one that could really help tonight is getting Juju Smith-Schuster. He had that touchdown pass in the Monday night game a couple of weeks ago against the Atlanta Falcons. We'll see if he can get him going. Joining us now is someone who knows a thing about scoring touchdowns in the NFL, because that was his job for many, many years. But he's now on the DraftKings trade floor in Las Vegas. Former NFL wideout who spent 3 of his 6 seasons with the Atlanta Falcons. VSiN's Mike Pritchard. Mike, when you see the numbers and you look at what we're seeing from Patrick Mahomes, a 53.4 passer rating, and all these kind of things, how do they sort of get through this stretch without Rashee Rice, without Hollywood Brown, and how can he elevate some of these other receivers?
You know, Trey, I mean, I think that's the optimal award right there. He elevates the players around him, right? You didn't mention Travis Kelce. He's always been the number 1 option. It's just that they're trying to figure it out as they go along in the season so far. So what I mean by that, for instance, they draft Xavier Worthy for the speed demon, you know, i.e. Tyreek Hill back in the day, right? Because last year they matriculated. Last year they averaged just about 21 points a game and they won a Super Bowl. This year they wanted to be more explosive. They wanted to add the air raid aspect to their offense, and therefore Xavier Worthy was going to provide that dimension. But with Rice going down and certainly the ineffectiveness or the inconsistency of that combination of Mahomes and Travis Kelce at this point, to me, it tells me that they're trying to figure it out. But they're undefeated. So once they figure it out, I mean, watch out, National Football League.
The Chiefs. How are they undefeated with all of these
They know how to win.
pieces.
They just know how to win.
I do believe this will
Yeah,
be the big
yeah.
test, but it's also next man up mentality, which we talk about across the league.
Right.
In this game specifically, you just mentioned Xavier Worthy. He's been that deep threat ability type guy, 54-yard touchdown we saw against the Chargers. That was the longest passing touchdown by Mahomes we've seen since 2022. So clearly the connection is there. How much confidence do you have in him to step up and be that number one receiver for Mahomes?
You know, Claudia, I have a lot of confidence. I mean, you drafted high like Worthy was, and you're teamed up and tagged up with Patrick Mahomes. He instills confidence, right? So that pass you're talking about against the Chargers, Worthy just ran by the coverage. I mean, they didn't even have a chance to cover the guys. So if you can protect Mahomes, and believe me, the Chiefs have seen this on film. If you can protect them, those big plays are going to be there. I really believe this is going to be a Travis Kelce game, though. And the reason for that is, you know, Andy Reid out of a bye week is so spectacular. We know that. But they're about to go into a bye week limping, right? So to me, it's like they're going to let it all hang out tonight. I think Travis Kelce and some man-to-man coverages as well. He'll be able to improvise. And that's a big aspect of the game between Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. So we'll see that tonight. Therefore, that explosiveness, too, I believe will be there for the Chiefs as well.
By the way, for those that didn't catch it earlier when Mike was talking to us, he used the word or the phrase matriculating down the field, a tip of the cap and an homage to former Chiefs head coach Hank Stram. That was his line as they took care of the Vikings in Super Bowl III, 24-7. Okay, you mentioned Alvin Kamara, right? We talked about this. Heading into Week 5, this was where Alvin Kamara stood. He led the league in touches, scrimmage yards, and touchdowns. Now, he's going up against a pretty stout defense for Kansas City. But the thing about Kamara, which makes him so difficult, Mike, I call him the cephalopod because he's like a squid or an octopus. He managed to slither away from big hits. How are they going to try and find a way to contain him, he's been off to an unbelievable start this year?
Well, he's helped the Saints tremendously, right, Trey? I mean, I think Clint Kubiak has brought in an elevated version of the Shanahan offense. And by the way, both teams are running the West Coast offense. It's going to be dynamic tonight. But Kamara, think of him as Run CMC. Think of him as another Christian McCaffrey type. You know, if you bring in heavy personnel to stop the run, all of a sudden he's split out, or he's going to motion out of the backfield and become a halfback and become a passing option, perhaps a receiver even. If you lighten your box and you play coverage, all of a sudden they're going to pound the rock and run it with Kamara. So pick your poison if you're the Chiefs. And I think that's going to keep Spags on his toes a little bit, on his heels even, in terms of what do I do to try to stop this Saints offense. He is the guy that makes it go. Again, just another tremendous halfback that the Saints have. And D. Carr is seeing the field well as well. I mean, he's playing confident football at the quarterback position.
And you mentioned a huge part of that passing game, too. It'll be tough tonight, of course, with this defense, which we talked about with the Chiefs. I'm sure they'll have a lot of focus on Alvin Kamara. Let me ask you, I said at the top of the show, the public, the sharps, everybody is on the Saints with the points. Which side do you lean, Mike?
Well, you know, Claudia,
I know you like your dogs.
Notorious for not. I do love my dogs. I do love my dogs. But the Chiefs are notorious for not covering. But they're 3-1 ATS this year and winning, right? And then you have the Saints, who also are 3-1 ATS. But you know, this game to me, I want to play the dog. I really do. But I'm trying to lean towards the Chiefs because of what I just mentioned about the edge going into a bye week, right? And knowing that they're going to get healthy. Hardman can step up. That guy caught the winning touchdown in the Super Bowl last year. So I think with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback and the fact that they feel great about playing at home, they know that the Super Bowl goes through Arrowhead. I mean, that's their mantra. They're going to show up tonight, and that's going to be a tall order for the Saints. I'm going to lean towards the Chiefs covering that spread right there.
And by the way, you mentioned Hardman. He's been dealing with a knee injury. Latest update is it looks like he is going to play tonight. And Mecole will be available for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Mike, as always, we appreciate the insights. Thanks very much.
Appreciate you as well.
Yeah, keep one other thing in mind here, real quickly. Not only have they won 10 straight games, the Chiefs have won 7 straight games by 7 points or less. That ties the record that was set by the Kansas City Chiefs in the COVID season of 2020. They just, when everything's on the line, they find a way to get it done. And I just have a feeling that'll happen again tonight. When we come back, we mentioned Travis Kelce. The stat sheet, oh, here we go. It's been a blank page recently. What's the problem? We'll take a closer look at the Chiefs tight end next. That sounded weird.
Is that a song?
Pregame Power Up is presented by Campbell's Chunky, soup that eats like a meal. Welcome back to the Pregame Power Up, presented by Campbell's Chunky. It is soup that eats like a meal. So it's been a weird, interesting, activity-filled year for Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. Of course, they celebrated back-to-back Super Bowls, his third Super Bowl ring since, of course, being put together with Patrick Mahomes as the starting quarterback. And he spent his entire offseason jet-setting around the world with, what's her name?
Swift?
Swaler Tift? No,
Yeah.
Taylor Swift. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift. And he just turned 35. Really kind of getting up there in football terms. But here's been the problem. So far through this career he's had with Mahomes, they had 52 touchdown catches, throws between them in the regular season, and an NFL record 16 in the playoffs. But so far this season, zip, zero, nada, zilch, donut, nothing, null set, void. They haven't connected one time. However, is it his age? Is it all the stuff that he's done off season? Why has it been such a slow start for the future Hall of Famer? Let's take a look into it. Kelce did show signs of life in the last game that they played, which was that game against the Chargers, but he always goes off against the Chargers. He eclipsed his total receiving yards for the entire season in Week 4, but it's still the first season of his career that he hasn't scored through the first 4 weeks. Now, to be fair, he's been open a couple of times and Patrick has gone another way, but we're just used to seeing Kelce celebrate in the end zone. And though there is literally not one shred of proof that Taylor Swift is the cause, Emerson Lazio wasn't willing to concede that point.
The year is 1989. Oil tankers are spilling into oceans across the world. Look Who's Talking is dominating the box office. Men's and women's fashion is in an interesting place. Society is crumbling. Even the Berlin Wall is falling down. And just a few short days before the end of the year, a child is born. A child who 34 years later is tormenting NFL fans. and is at the heart of the demise of one of the most outstanding tight ends we've ever seen. That child is now a woman. Her name is Taylor Swift. Now, despite Taylor's average level of talent amongst real musicians, her popularity is undeniable. These days, her influence can be found in NFL suites across the league as she cheers on her latest lover, Travis Kelce. And despite her music that is aimed at the most basic, lowest common denominator audience in the world, shockingly, NFL fans did not take kindly to her presence at NFL games.
There are still some sports fans that have no idea how to act around women, especially incredibly powerful and successful women. And the history of sports is unfortunately full of people trying to blame the lack of accomplishment by the people on the field on their spouses because it's easy, low-hanging fruit for people who don't actually want to work to figure out what's going on in the game.
I have no awareness if I'm being shown too much, pissing off a few dads, Brads, and Chads, Taylor teased when she was asked about being constantly shown on Chiefs broadcast. But today, TV airtime is no longer the only issue Taylor and Travis are facing in their romance. The relationship is now being blamed for Kelce's lack of production on the field. Through 4 games, Travis is off to one of the worst starts in his career. 15 catches for 158 yards, which would have been a normal game for him during his dating days with Kayla Nicole, when he was an All-Pro and eclipsed 1,000 receiving yards each of those years. The couple was spotted out and about throughout the offseason, from date night at Coachella to Travis making multiple Eras Tour appearances. Some are even questioning Kelce's commitment to his offseason.
You've seen the amount of work Taylor Swift has put in on the Eras Tour to be ready to go for this, and you don't think Travis has been able to find a gym on the road? I'm sure on whatever jet she and him take, there's probably a better weight room than I've seen in my entire life. So, no, I see what this is. This is why people have a problem with the media, because you guys are trying to come in here and
On September 8th, more questions about Kelce's allegiance to football emerge when he's spotted at the U.S. Open, just 3 days after narrowly escaping a season-opening loss. This captivating couple rocked out to "I Believe in a Thing Called Love," and just a week later, Travis was in the darkness, catching only 4 passes for 30 yards against the Falcons, following that up with a 1-for-5 performance versus the Bengals. Now, Kelce is coming off one of his best postseasons ever, bringing home another Super Bowl victory with Taylor by his side. But this season has NFL and Chiefs fans wondering when Travis will shake off the slow start and begin to fill in the blank space on the stat sheet. But hey, don't blame me, Swifties. These are the facts, and I'm just the messenger.
Thoughts and prayers to Emerson Lazia's mentions on social
Seriously?
media. Like, that's brave. Like, people don't know how brave that is, because the Swifties, they are relentless.
Oh.
They will find you. Like, they're Liam Neeson. They have a special set of skills that they've acquired over the years. They will find you, Emerson, and they will end you.
Emerson, honestly, you need to get extra locks on your door.
Seek
I don't know why you
immediate
went that
help.
far. You
Seek
shouldn't have gone there.
immediate help. So we need immediate help right now to try and figure out what's going on. And for that, we're going to bring in someone who knows a thing or two about this game. Is a longtime offensive lineman in the NFL. Marshall Newhouse played many, many years, blocking for some of the great quarterbacks of all time. And Marshall, it is great to have you on the show right now, and we're doing it here. Fine, excellent. Let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing out of this Kansas City offense. We know that Rashee Rice is going to be out at least to 4 to 6 weeks, could be as much as the entire season. But one of the trends that we've noticed, Marshall, is that they're running the ball more in this season with Patrick Mahomes than ever before. They're running the ball they're passing the ball rather just about 53.6% of the time. That's the run-pass ratio that is really, really as balanced as it's ever been for an Andy Reid-led offense. Is that by design or by necessity?
It's a little bit of both. And, we could talk about maybe they're turning into a run-first offense versus a pass-first offense. I think they're just a win-first team. They've shown us in the last 3 or 4 years on this historic Super Bowl run that they are willing to do whatever and whenever to adjust and adapt to what teams are giving them and to the circumstances of their roster. Because right now, their circumstances are a lot of key injuries, a lot of misguided decisions being made by some of the Chiefs players, and they're doing what they need to do. So signing Kareem Hunt as a backstop, They added Samaje Perine. And so, yeah, maybe they open up the game and they lean on the run a little bit more. But at any moment, I believe that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid could turn into an explosive passing game because they've shown us that already. They're doing what they need to do in the moment. But, yeah, they're just going to find the weak points. They're going to look at their own self-scouting roster, see where they don't have things, and then they're going to adjust. And that's what they've done through their entire tenure.
It's the Mahomes and Reid effect, the fact that they are 5.5 point favorites. Of course, they're home, but with all of these injuries, any other team I don't think would be getting this type of respect. And that's a way to look at this Saints squad, is their big edge is their health, at least on offense with Alvin Kamara being healthy. So let's talk about what this offense has done. In the first 2 weeks, they put up 40 or more in the wins against the Panthers and the Cowboys, and then 12 in their loss to the Eagles and 24 against the Falcons. Do you think, Marshall, this is as simple as they were just easier defenses that they faced in the first 2 weeks? Or is there an actual problem you can pinpoint with this offense?
Listen, I'm as huge a fan of Clint Kubiak's offense and their performance through those first 2 games as anyone. Those 40-point wins were earned, but this is the NFL. People adjust. Not only do people adjust, there are people like Vic Fangio and Raheem Morris who've got a long track record of playing incredible defense and getting teams ready. So from week to week, that's just how this game goes. And so the 40, point totals, the leading the league in scoring offense, that was never going to last at that clip. It's just, that would be unprecedented, literally. So I think they just came back down to reality. I think they'll find their way, a regression to the mean. And we got to remember, I said this morning, they lost these last 2 games by combined 5 points. And so, yeah, you want to see that they can come up with points to win those close games. But I'm not at all worried. I think they have a few things they can iron out, get more consistent play from their backfield. I mean, Kamara's been great. They might be getting Kendra Miller back. And so they have the things that are there. They're not panicking. They have a veteran quarterback who's been leading them well. So I expect them to bounce back. And it might be tonight, even though Spags is going to be another one of those D coordinators, that this is not new to him. So the NFL is just a very competitive league, and that you couldn't have expected for them to continue on the clip of those first 2 games.
Yeah, Steve Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, is the only DC in NFL history to have 4 Super Bowl rings, 3 with the Chiefs and 1 during his tenure with the New York Giants. Let's take another look at something else that shouldn't make sense for Kansas City, yet it does. You look at their numbers. They have turned the ball over way too much. They're -4 on the turnover differential, yet they're 4-0. To put that in perspective, every other team in the NFL right now, Marshall, that has at least a -2 turnover differential, their combined records, wait for it, are 12-20. What is it about Kansas City that you can point to that allows them to turn the ball over at an alarming rate, to not function well in the red zone and put up a ton of points, and still be one of 2 undefeated teams in the NFL?
I think this talking point is underrated, and it's remarkable if you really think about it. So
right.
I don't think the Chiefs are on any kind of a turnover margin clip that they haven't been on before, if not for certain luck. There's a metric out there, I think Pro Football Focus does it, on when a quarterback drops back to pass, his targets, did he put the ball in danger of turnover-worthy passes? Patrick Mahomes has been high in the league multiple years running, but their luck has been insane, whether it's penalties or whether it's the ball just bouncing a certain way. All I think is happening is that luck is certainly kind of running out. But the thing that they're overcoming is that on all the other phases of the game, they are just a well-taught, coached, constructed team. And again, Patrick Mahomes is the ultimate trump card. And so I don't think this is a unprecedented clip of them with these turnovers. It's not sustainable. I'll give you that. I think, eventually they'll catch up to them. But again, this is not new. They've dealt with this. Even in their playoff runs, they've had a lot of just fortunate plays. But, the conspiracy nuts with the tinfoil hats on have things to say about that. But it's just, I don't think it's very much different than past years, other than, teams aren't making them pay, or they're preventing teams from making them pay. And that's a part of these, we call it hidden yardage, these things, the game within the game, that they do better than almost anyone in the league now running the entire time that Patrick Mahomes has been their quarterback.
Yeah, to your point, there's a couple of stats that people love to point out. One specifically, I think Patrick Mahomes has had 18 or 17 interceptions negated by penalties, and that's fine, but then you have to have the other metric. Guess who since 2018 has the most touchdowns taken back by penalties? That would be Patrick Mahomes in 15.
So a few things going against the Chiefs, but like we've been saying, it doesn't really seem to matter, Marshall, because it's the Chiefs. It's Reed, it's Mahomes. They somehow find a way. I asked Mike Pritchard what side he actually likes the Chiefs to cover. I think 5.5 is too much for a Saints squad where we know they have the talent. Getting receivers open will be a big part of this because the Chiefs have played pretty well, not allowing a receiver to get over 70 yards. And when we look at the total, all of the money's coming in on the under because of these two top defenses. So to that, I'll ask you, any strong lean on his side? Or maybe it's just a total play with a lower scoring game?
I still have the Chiefs winning the game, but what we're seeing as big underdogs this season have been covering and outright winning so many of these games, especially this week. The Giants were huge underdogs, and they won against Seattle. I think that's too big of a number for a Saints team that I believe is really, really good. I think Patrick Mahomes is still, I think they're the superior team. He is the superior quarterback, and that overcomes whatever odds we might be looking at. But I wouldn't take I would take them heads up, but I wouldn't mess with any of the spread. I just don't think that number is soft enough for me.
All right, let's get to your wheelhouse now. Let's talk about playing behind an offensive line and what Patrick Mahomes has done. He's only been pressured on 24% of his dropbacks. That's second lowest in the NFL entering week 5. But a lot of people looked at that Chargers game and were saying, oh, he's got nervous feet, all this kind of stuff. Do you see anything from Mahomes in terms of the way he's acting in the pocket that would be concerning to you?
No, nothing we haven't seen before.
Right.
Listen, he's still got an elite interior of the offensive line in center Creed Humphrey, guards Joe Tooney, and Trey Smith. And then, he has a rookie at left tackle, before, in Kingsley Suamataia, and then Wanye Morris at left tackle and Jawan Taylor at right tackle. So sometimes the edges are a little leaky, but this is the Pat Mahomes that we've grown accustomed to. There's a reason why quarterback coaches say, I don't use Patrick Mahomes as teaching tape, because nothing he does is, within the confines of normal quarterback play. So maybe you see happy feet. I think Patrick does things intentionally, and he's kind of adjusting. He's at this point not worried until the playoffs are here about playing his best ball. They're obviously trying to win these games and figure out, with their health problems, where they go from here. But he's not worried, and I don't think we should be either.
All right, Marshall, thanks.
That's the scary part. If they win tonight and then they get healthier, gosh, a 3-peat coming up. It was a wild week 5 across the NFL. Another disappointing result for Joey B and the Bengals, but are they still a Chiefs challenger? That's next on the Pregame PowerUp.
Pregame Power Up is presented by Campbell's Chunky, soup that eats like a meal. We continue on the pregame power-up presented by Campbell's Chunky. It's soup that eats like a meal. Now, Taysom Hill found the end zone twice last week for the Saints against the Falcons, but then left the game with that rib injury and is out tonight with a rib fracture. Hill has 7 games with 2 or more rushing touchdowns since 2020. That is the second most among non-running backs, behind only Jalen Hurts. So that's a fancy way of letting you know there are no Hill bettors or prop bets for Taysom Hill tonight. Here are some more ones of the notable prop bets that we do have available. People are split on Mahomes' passing yards, but they love Derek Carr's. Kamara, a popular pick to go over his receiving yards tonight, along with Juwan Johnson and the previously mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster. For more on ways to look at tonight's game, let's back over to Claudia.
I don't see any Xavier Worthy on there, people. What
That's
are
a
you
mistake.
doing? We know the targets are going to be there by nature with Rashee Rice being out. Let's build a 3-leg same-game parlay together, and that is where we're going for our first leg. An anytime touchdown with Xavier Worthy at plus 150, and then I'm going to go a little crazy, people, okay? I do think the Saints have a chance of winning this thing outright, so I'm actually going to take them. Oh, here we go. Yeah, to 3. I don't need 5. I just want 3 points with the Saints and then a passing prop. People are split on the Mahomes passing yards. That's fine. I'm just going to go right to completions, Trey, and I'm going to go under. And we're going to find them. Yeah, we are. Where are they? Hey, there they are.
Completions?
Nope, those are... Here we go, under on completions, because guess what? He has only cashed the over on that once. He had almost 40 attempts in that game. I do not see that happening here. This 3-leg same game parlay, if each leg cashes out, we are cashing out at 15 to 1. $10 wins you $150. And speaking of money, speaking of winning, Bill Belichick comes to mind, and a phrase he always said, we're on to Cincinnati. Let's go back to this past week. That was for Cincinnati up against the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, it was crazy. And by the way, I thought you were going to talk about Bill's new Instagram post, but that was a separate issue
Taylor
entirely.
Swift, I mean.
It was one of the games of the year, what we saw in Cincinnati on Sunday. The Ravens came back in an OT thriller. 5 touchdowns, nearly 400 yards from Joe Burrow wasn't enough to keep the Bengals from dropping to 1-4 on the season. We had a 51-yard run, a Justin Tucker field goal sealed Cincy's fate. 1-4 teams historically only make the playoffs about 6.6% of the time. Now take a look now how the playoff odds have shifted in the AFC North after that one. First time this season you can get plus money on the Bengals to make the playoffs, and since the loss, they're actually the second most bet team by handle to win the AFC. Bettors not the only ones who are still high on the Bengals. The guys from God Bless Football still believe they're the biggest challengers to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Thanks, Trey. Stugotz, big one tonight.
Yeah.
The Saints at the Chiefs. Chiefs are 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't looked dominant yet this season. They have obviously the undefeated record, but is there a threat to them in the AFC? Because you had some of the perceived threats go down yesterday. The Bills lost. The Jets, if you want to call them a threat, they lost. The Bengals haven't looked good. Ravens and Texans won, but is there a clear favorite in the AFC to challenge the Chiefs this year?
I have a couple of teams that I think could challenge the Chiefs. Their defense has been dominant. The team has not been dominant, but here they are sitting at 4-0. I would still put the Bills in that mix. I would say the Ravens certainly have an opportunity to beat Kansas City if they meet up again in the playoffs. I think the Texans are maybe the best team in the AFC, so they are certainly in that mix as well. Denver's a good team. They're starting to come on with Bo Nix. I think the team, this is going to sound crazy because they're 1-4. The Cincinnati Bengals, if you look at their schedule, if you look at their, Trey, look at their schedule. They're 1-4. They have the Giants, the Browns, the Eagles, and the Raiders. Those are their next 4. They're going to get to 5-4. And then you know who they play again? The Baltimore Ravens. I am not giving up on the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. So there it is, Billy. I'm giving you the Bills, Ravens, Texans, and I am not giving up on the Cincinnati Bengals.
So Burrow started out the season looking almost unhealthy, right? We saw the situation where it seemed like he was struggling to even hold a water bottle. He's turned it around in recent weeks. I don't know that they're going to come all the way back and challenge the Chiefs. This one tonight is an interesting one, right? Because the Saints were riding high. People were saying, wow, this is one of the best teams in the NFL. And they've hit a bit of a little skid here. They lost to the Eagles. They lost to the Falcons. The Falcons, by the way, have had 2 big wins back to back.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you have any confidence in the Chiefs tonight against the Saints, or do you think that things finally catch up to them here with all the injuries starting to add up?
So I think it could be, and I think it's going to be kind of like, the same game the Chiefs have played all year. They're at home. Defense is really good. Spags loves to dial up blitzes when he needs a big blitz. And I could see the Saints. In fact, I think the Saints will keep the game close, but the Chiefs win. So I think the Saints are going to cover, but the Chiefs will do what they've done all season, which is win a very close defensive game at home against the Saints.
It's going to be interesting, I think, to see here with the Rashee Rice injury in particular. Does this kind of get Travis Kelce activated, right? The first couple of weeks we saw him not.
He was activated last week. I mean.
No, I know. That's what I'm
right.
saying. The first couple of weeks he really wasn't getting as many targets. He had some plays that were called back with penalties. But really, the number of catches just weren't there for him. Last week, I think he had 7 catches. Over-under on him this week is 5.5 catches. I feel like, and I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, I feel like this might be the week where Patrick kind of just goes back to his comfort blanket. If he's not taken out of the game, just, by defense or whatever, and they just kind of start feeding Travis again this week.
Well, he has no Rice, he has no Pacheco, too. And so you would think that Travis Kelce would get...
All reliable.
Yes, would get a lot of touches tonight. It's interesting, man. Like the Chiefs, for them, just keep winning games, win them by a point, win them by 2, win them by 3. Mahomes, as long as he's healthy, everyone else could be hurt, and I'm including the offensive line. As long as they have Patrick Mahomes, that team is fine. Their goal... Mahomes healthy come playoff time. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they can get through. I mean, last year they didn't look dominant in the regular season, and everything started clicking in the postseason.
I mean, Trey, you throw it to the guys from God Bless Football. You want a team that could beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and what we give you is a 1-4 Cincinnati Bengals team. Why? Because the schedule and because Burrow's the only guy to beat Mahomes in the postseason besides Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Stu, I can't argue with you. If the Bengals could just get out of their own way, I don't disagree with you. And you can check out the guys on God Bless Football right here on DraftKings Network every Monday and Friday. Stu Gott's Billy Gill, and a rotating host of family and friends. That's a fancy way of saying, well, whoever's available. Discuss the latest from around the NFL. You can also find and download the show wherever you get your podcasts. I highly recommend it, because Stu is one of the most entertaining people in the history of this medium. So there are a lot of things that sort of gave me a what the heck just happened this past weekend. And I'm going to get into some of it with Marshall here in a minute. But I got to say, if I'm a Bills fan, forget the late game things. I'll get it out with Marshall in a minute. Claudia, this is 2 straight clunkers for Josh Allen. He was 16-29 in that Sunday night game against the Ravens for under 200 yards. He started 1 of 9. He was 9 of 30. 9 of 30! Against this Texans team. If I'm a big picture person, I am wondering what the hell happened to the MVP of the first 3 weeks. Where has he gone in these last 2 games?
He didn't have Khalil Shakir in this last game. I honestly thought it was impressive with the Texans getting healthier, right? They got Tank Dell back. I know they lost Nico Collins
for a while.
Terrible for them. But the fact is they still have Steph Diggs, right? It's like, oh, you lose one of your best receivers. You still had Steph Diggs. I think this Houston team probably should have won by more. So I will give the Bills a little bit of credit. I do think being without your top receiver, able to keep it that close, was impressive. Now we'll see what they can do against the Jets, which... That's a whole conversation. How much time do we have?
There's not enough hours in the day to discuss the Jets.
He texted me saying, I love being right, and he was right. You were right about the Jets from the beginning, and I'm fully on that bandwagon now. Not just Aaron Rodgers, okay, 3 interceptions, sacked 3 times. Allen Lazard dropped 4 passes, including a touchdown. And Breece Hall, has anybody seen him? Has anybody seen Breece Hall? No. So the Jets, to this point, extremely disappointing. All of the hype, I think, already is sort of burnt out. So that'll be a good one between the Bills and the Jets this coming week.
And I'm just going to point this out, okay? 5 games in for the Jets, grand total of 93 points with Aaron Rodgers. Last season, 5 games with Zach Wilson, 93 points. Nothing has changed because the Jets remain the Jets. All right, for more on Week 5, let's go back to the big man. And let's go back to Marshall Newhouse. Marshall, I want to talk to you about the end of the Bills game because it drove me crazy. For people that didn't see it or didn't quite figure out what was happening, it was a tie game. They got the ball back inside their own 5-yard line with 30 seconds left, and they threw it 3 straight times. They took no time off the clock, which allowed the Texans not to use any of their timeouts, so they had one left after a quick hitter and set up an attempt at a 59-yard field goal. Marshall, situational football, game management, that's how you win games. I was blown away at what a colossal failure this was in those situations for the Buffalo coaching staff.
Yeah, I can't argue with anything you just said. I was watching it via Scott Hansen on the Red Zone, and he was in real time just completely baffled. It was kind of crazy to watch. And Sean McDermott has come out and said that, they should have run the ball there in that situation. So I don't know where the decision making came from, if there was Josh overrode them or Joe Brady overrode them. But to do that, listen, on 2nd and 10, after a first down incompletion, there are guys open. There's a quick curl route to Dalton Kincaid, and Keon Coleman is there for a dig for about 7 or 8 yards. So there's stuff open. So maybe if you execute, we're having a little bit of a different conversation. But the principle of the situation still remains. You force them to take none of their timeouts, and then you had an okay punt, and then they're back in field goal range within one play. It's just you can't. At worst, you go to overtime. That's just you have to tell yourself. At worst, we just take it overtime and we go from there. And so, unfortunately, they have a history of boneheaded decisions like this and lack of late game clock management. So I'm worried a little bit because this feels like a repeating thing. I'm also worried that potentially they had a starting star QB whose frame of mind wasn't all the way there, as we might say.
His head banged off that turf pretty hard, right?
Listen, yeah, and so I've had concussions. I can't imagine doing what a quarterback has to do in that situation. Maybe not all the way there, and so so many failures. And Sean McDermott has taken the onus on that. That's what he's supposed to do as a head coach. But what you're also supposed to do as a head coach is not even get there, not even put yourself in that situation. Hey, they made a good punt. You're backed up. Let's not turn this slow bleed into a gusher. Let's get to overtime. And then you have Josh Allen. You have one of the biggest trump cards in the league, but instead you throw 3 times, not just first down converting routes. He threw deep a couple of times, and it just made no sense.
Yeah, extend the game. Stay in the game as long as possible. If you're Sean McDermott, override your offensive coordinator. He reports to you. You don't report to him. It's on you to make that decision. That's the thing that drove me crazy.
So a few things to sort, a few problems they have over there in Buffalo. I'm trying to think of problems in Minnesota, and I really can't find any, Marshall, because Sam Darnold is the only other quarterback not named Patrick Mahomes that has kept his team undefeated. And not just wins, not just undefeated. That's against the Giants, the 49ers, the Texans, the Packers, and the Jets. And if you look forward, I mean, impressive resume. They have one of the easiest schedules remaining. How impressed are you with this Viking squad, and how far is this team going to go?
I'm so impressed. I mean, they're playing complete football right now. I mean, Brian Flores is doing, things, unprecedented things on defense. He's really making life tough for all the opposing quarterbacks. And I give Kevin O'Connell most of the credit because, yes, Sam Darnold is a reclamation project. I'm happy for him, but he's got this offense humming. They're doing the small things that need to be done. They're running when they need to, and they're similarly to what the Bills didn't do. They're just mitigating disaster in these last-minute situations that get you in chances to win the game. And so Sam Darnold's a quarterback who we saw in most of his career as a risk taker, even reckless at times. And so they've dialed some of that back with just the decisions he's allowed to make by just giving him less to do and less to screw up, but also empowered him to then use the athleticism and the arm that he has. And so they're doing all the right things. They're hitting all the right buttons. The team is flying around. I'm really excited for them. As far as they go is Sam Darnold's ceiling ultimately, because he is your QB1. He who is, you drafted a first-round guy, but this season, he's who you have. So if you can get Sam Darnold to play at an elite level for the rest of the season, they're absolutely a contender.
Yeah, and he's only 27 years old. He and Joe Burrow are almost exactly the same age. Sometimes we just give up on these guys way too soon. Marshall, as always, we appreciate the information, my friend. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back here on this edition of Pregame Power Up, listen, if you're going to beat the Chiefs, it's very simple. This might be the time to do it. Literally, chronologically, it makes sense. We'll explain it, and we'll break it down with actual numbers. That's next on the Pregame Power Up.
But first,
let's do it. Where are we going? Next Gen Cats.
It's a spooky Next Gen Cat.
Score tonight. Official pick on who's going to score tonight. Next Gen Cat. He nailed it last week, or she. I don't know. I haven't looked. With Drake London. So.
Oh, this is real spooky.
What do we got?
Festive.
Who is it?
Chris Olave, 13-1. That's pretty good payout. Smart cat.
Pregame Power Up is presented by Campbell's Chunky, soup that eats like a meal.
Welcome back to Pregame PowerUp, presented by Campbell's Chunky, soup that eats like a meal. Here's who bettors like to score tonight. Alvin Kamara, top of the board. Travis Kelce, plus 125. Kareem Hunt. Xavier Worthy at plus 150 feels like some good value with the targets. That should be his way. And then Chris Olave rounding it out at plus 185. Here's DKN social media correspondent Megan Townsley with the latest from the DK Sports Betting Groups. Oh, well, the betting groups are cool. I'm sure a lot of people are betting on Travis Kelce tonight. I'm honestly surprised.
She really needs to speak up. Obviously, there's an audio issue there. We apologize. But it gives us a chance to ruminate on some breaking news that just came in from my longtime former teammate Adam Schefter, and it involves Rashee Rice.
Yep. After consulting today with Dr. Schefter says there's a lot of optimism, quote, that standout receiver Rashee Rice didn't suffer a knee injury as significant as first believed, per source. Rice will be put under anesthesia Tuesday to determine the extent of his injury, but the belief now is that it could be much shorter recovery timeline than originally thought, which is obviously great news for the Chiefs.
When Andy Reid was interviewed at the halftime of that Chargers game, he said it's not good, and you saw the knee hyperextended, and everyone's fearing, okay, that's got to be an ACL, right? Now it looks like they're saying that's not what they're seeing right now. And that's really good news because Hollywood Brown has not played since the first preseason game where he fell on that shoulder. He actually did have to have surgery. It's interesting, right? Because that one got significantly worse over time, and it looks like this one is getting better. Boy, if you're a Chiefs fan, you have to love hearing that the idea that you might get Rashee back, because going into that game with the Chargers, he was the league leader in yards and receptions. So he was a huge part of this offense.
And you just hope they can stay healthy over these next few games. Of course, the Saints tonight. Then you get the Niners. Raiders should be all right, but the Bucs have been a tough team. The Broncos are looking better week by week. That defense looking pretty legitimate. Then you get the Bills. Hopefully by that point they're a bit healthier and have some of those questions answered. So there's definitely some tough spots in here. Now, of course, I don't know if the next 2 or 3 weeks he'll be back, but by the end of the season, that's what we've talked about, this Chiefs squad. Even if they're not playing well in the regular season, as long as they get to the post, they're going to be that.
They never looked like the best team last year until they won the entire thing. That's the way it was. He's on injured reserve, so he's going to be out for at least 4 weeks. And speaking of 4 weeks, usually in a calendar month, you have 4 weeks. Sometimes we have 5 because the calendar's stupid.
They just decide when,
This is why October is significant, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to take a look at these numbers. These are the Chiefs' wins and Patrick Mahomes' touchdown-interception ratios since he became the starter in 2018. What stands out? October. They're great in September. They close well in November, December, and January. They get the October blues. He has, as a team, the Chiefs have more losses with Patrick Mahomes under center in the month of October. They have their worst winning percentage in the month of October, and his touchdown to interception ratio is the worst in October. Maybe the Chiefs were thrilled that their bye week came in October this year. So if they get through this game, they get a bye week, and maybe October doesn't hurt them as much as it usually does. But I don't know why that is. Andy Reid's teams always get off to this great start, and then suddenly October comes around in the Mahomes era. That's where they sort of go on cruise control and things go afoul.
That makes me feel a lot better then about my Chiefs. I mean, my Saints play tonight then, Trey.
Well, here's the counter to that. Since Dennis Allen became the head coach of the Saints in 2022, the Saints are 1-5 in primetime games. That's the worst ever. Derek Carr, primetime games on the road in his career, 2-9. Derek Carr is a starting quarterback against the Chiefs, 3-14. Derek Carr in a head-to-head matchup against Patrick Mahomes, 1-8. That's the worst record for one quarterback team by another quarterback team, but except for one other one. And that's his older brother David, who was 1-9 against Peyton Manning-led teams. The Carrs hate Manning and Patrick Mahomes. That's just what it is. We'll see what happens tonight. For Claudia, for Emerson, for Marshall, for Mike Pritchard, and a very silent DK social media correspondent, I'm Trey Wingo. Thanks for watching Pregame PowerUp.